Today we have a story that blends ingenuity, passion, and a touch of automotive magic from a backyard tinkerer in Kingsport, Tennessee. Hello folks, I'm Steve Gilly, along with Rod Mullins, and this is another one of the Stories of Appalachia.
Steve, this is what I enjoy, especially about Appalachia, because we have such, how can I say this, innovative minds that take something that may have been, worked out on a drawing board in Detroit or somewhere else, and then somebody in Appalachia figures out a way to do it better. And this is a story just like that.
Oh, it is indeed. And I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of this story up until maybe the last 2 or 3 years. But this was big news in Kingsport, Tennessee.
Wow.
Back in the 40s and 50s. It sure was. And it's a very, very interesting story. And to get into the story, we got to go back to the end of World War II, which was a time of rebuilding, innovation, and dreams taking flight all across the country. And it was at this time that a man in East Tennessee named Talmadge Judd embarked on a journey that would lead to the creation of something truly ahead of its time. Now, you might be saying, who in the world was Talmadge Judd? Never heard of him. Well, he was born in 1928, and he had a fascination with mechanics, which began early in his life on his father's farm down in Cookeville. And as a young boy, he crafted toy cars, foreshadowing the passion and ingenuity that would define his future endeavors.
Well, Talmadge Judd eventually made his way to Kingsport, where he established Judd's Fix-It shop along the Bristol Highway. Now, since 1928, of course, he had honed his skills, becoming not just a locksmith, but a specialized repairman with a keen eye for innovation. It was this that led him to pursue a dream that had been in his mind since childhood, a dream of crafting his very own automobile. Now, this was before Johnny Cash came up with the idea of the, one piece at a time sort of thing, okay? Taking to his own backyard shop in 1945, Talmadge Judd, using his own skills as a repairman and a mechanic, and with determination, built in just, get this folks, 4 months, his life's dream, an automobile he affectionately named the Hummingbird. What a name, too. This car was unlike any of the behemoths you'd find on the road in the 1940s and 50s because, Detroit and some of the automakers were just cranking back up on making some of these cars after the war. So, they were big. Everybody wanted a big car and so forth. And this is what we would call, though, a subcompact car, painted in a striking dark red hue with a tan canvas top that could be removed for those carefree summer drives throughout the Tennessee countryside. Well, here's what came out of that backyard garage in 1945. It was a car that measured a mere 10 feet in length. That's right, 10 feet in length, packed a punch with its 4-cylinder, 20 horsepower motor. That's got a lot of punch for 1945. And its tire size, a modest 400 by 12, supported its smooth journey, while an 11-inch steering wheel akin to a small dinner plate guided its course. And Steve, it almost reminds me of a clown car, almost in a way, the way it's being described. But still, it's a real car.
Well, what truly set the Hummingbird apart were its details. Shiny stainless steel hubcaps, a red leather interior that exuded luxury, and a tiny radio nestled in the dashboard. Behind the seat, a spare tire and tool compartment stood ready for any adventure. Talmadge Judd's mechanical ability shone through in every aspect of the Hummingbird. Without blueprints, mind you, Rod, he relied solely on his own personal vision and expertise. It was a labor of love, reflecting his lifelong dream and his determination to achieve it. Now, once he introduced his creation to the world, the public and the media became fascinated by it. In fact, it made the pages of Popular Mechanics magazine. Newspaper reporters marveled at the Hummingbird's capabilities. Mr. Judd confidently stated that it could reach speeds of 70 miles an hour and achieve an impressive 50 miles on 1 gallon of gas, an efficiency that back in the 40s and 50s was, absolutely ahead of its time. He even bragged about the speeding tickets he got while driving his little car, Rod. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I can believe that, but that's probably something he shouldn't have been bragging about too much. But let's go on here, okay? Talmadge was proud of his little car and all of its capabilities. He proudly displayed the car at local events, capturing the imagination of curious onlookers, including at Bullitt Park's 4th of July event and horse show in Big Stone Gap, Virginia in 1946, where it was a big hit. He even took a business trip to Canada in his beloved Hummingbird. Along the way, he made a stop in Detroit, where newspapers eagerly covered his invention, granting him valuable publicity and recognition, right in the big boy's backyard, so to speak. Well, despite the admiration and inquiries from curious onlookers, though, Talmadge Judd had no immediate plans to manufacture the Hummingbird for sale. Perhaps it was just the spirit of a creator, satisfied with his creation, or the practicality of securing financial backing for such a venture that held him back. However, the possibility lingered in the air, a whisper of the Hummingbird gracing assembly lines, offering its own unique blend of innovation and affordability to the public. Imagine owning a piece of automobile history, a symbol of Appalachian ingenuity. Well, folks, however, fate, as it often does, struck Talmadge Judd right smack between the eyes in this one at the time of his triumph.
Oh, it did indeed, in the form of a lawsuit. You see, in June 1944, he had sold Judd's Fix-It shop in Kingsport to a man named Joe Grog. Part of the deal was apparently a verbal promise not to compete with Mr. Grog inside the corporate limits of Kingsport. Well, by December of that same year, just before he began work on his live stream, Talmadge Judd opened a new shop, Judd's Lock Shop on Center Street. Here he mainly did locksmithing, but also, to his ultimate detriment, did repair work as well. And this brought him to the attention of Joe Grog over at Judd's Fix-It shop. And Mr. Grog was not happy to see Mr. Judd in Kingsport doing repair work again. So he did what you do in that situation. He contacted a lawyer. And that lawyer took his case and filed a lawsuit against Judd and Judd's Lock Shop in Chancery Court in Kingsport. The court's ruling in October 1947 marked a pivotal moment in Mr. Talmadge's journey. Chancellor Joe Worley entered an injunction against Mr. Judd, preventing him from operating his lock shop within the city of Kingsport. And that led to a quandary, did it not, Ron?
Well, it did, Steve, because Talmadge Judd had to make a decision, and he had to make a big decision. Do something else for a living or leave the place he'd called for home for years to continue his fix-it business. Well, ultimately, he made his choice. He advertised Judd's Lock Shop for sale in the Kingsport Times-News on Sunday, September 28, 1947. He then left Kingsport. But, by 1949, Talmadge had relocated to Greenville, Tennessee, where he opened a Mr. Fix-It shop under the banner of Troy Products Company. His business continued to thrive as he embarked on this new chapter in his life, and he did business in Greenville for the next decade.
Well, Rod, by 1960, Mr. Grog had apparently sold Judd's Fix-It shop, moving on to a saw sales shop with offices in Kingsport and Weber City. It now appeared safe for Mr. Judd to return to the Model City, which he did. In August 1960, he reopened Judd's Lock Shop, now situated on Revere Street, partnering with his son, Troy G. Judd. In the end, though, Talmadge Judd never was able to strike a deal to mass-produce that Hummingbird. It remained a cherished, one-of-a-kind collector's item, a testament to his life's dream. He passed away in 1971, leaving his estate, administered by his son Troy, to his family, including the Hummingbird automobile. So, Rod, you might be asking, what in the world happened to that car?
Well, Steve, I've got the answer for you, and this kind of surprised me too when I started reading it. It eventually ended up in the hands of a Tennessee collector named Tim. And Tim just happens to have been a lifelong friend of Mark and Digger of the TV show Moonshiners. In February of 2024, this year, Mark posted a video on Facebook about the car and with Tim, who had decided to sell it through a lottery. If you'd like to see what the Hummingbird looks like compared to two grown men, we'll post a link in the description of the podcast for you to go over to Mark and Digger's Facebook page to watch. But, Steve, this is just unreal that here they are. They're putting it up through a lottery, which I think is great in this case. But still, that ingenuity and everything, and he still didn't explore it. We start thinking about the cars and the people that, tried to produce cars, and I think of Tucker. Tucker, the man in his automobile and everything. Tucker took on the big three or whatever, big three, big four, whatever they were, automakers at the time. And, they eventually just put him out of business is what they ended up doing. And it was not just them as much as it was the U.S. government. I think the Senate was involved with it. There was a senator involved with it as well, or at least from watching the movie with Jeff Bridges. But still, this is just unreal that a person, and you think from Appalachia, they don't know how to do anything here except for make stills and different things like this. And he creates a car that's able to get 50 miles a gallon. And it reminds me of a story here several years ago, I think up in Martinsville, when I was living in Martinsville for a little while, up there teaching, of a man who had an S10 pickup truck. And he had went and filled the truck bed with just regular car batteries. And he figured this deal out of how to run his car, that S10 pickup truck, off of all those car batteries that were lined up in the bed part of that S10 pickup truck. It didn't get a lot of notice. It became, just sort of one of those things, a fancy for people around Henry County and some, right there in the mountains of Southwest Virginia and moving out toward the Piedmont. But it really never gained any ground with it. And then I start thinking of these people that's had these ideas for other innovations with cars and so forth. And it's just unreal. Some of the minds, they may not have the MIT and the practical training at a big university, but gosh, some of these people, they know their stuff. You know what? There's a man in Wise, if I'm not mistaken. Elmer Bates had, I don't know how many patents, and he just was unreal. Had a place where you could go in. He had his own sorting system of where he'd go in. If you needed a particular part, he'd walk over to that drawer and he'd pull it out and he'd say, "Here it is." I mean, it was just that's the kind of people that Appalachia produces. And I know there's people that say, yeah, you soup up cars and you run moonshine with them and things, but, this is ingenuity at its finest.
Well, he was about 30 years ahead of his time. I mean, it was, the mid-'70s after the gas crisis?
Right.
Before they had little bitty cars out there. He just hit it 30 years ahead of its time. And this fellow with the batteries in the truck, probably the same thing, 30 years ahead of his time. It's fascinating to see these things. And it also goes to show that you don't have to have a college education to be able to build something. I mean, after all, Thomas Edison didn't have a college education.
Right.
Look what he accomplished.
That's right. Well, and I don't think, did Tesla even have a college education either? Nikolai Tesla? I'm not sure if he did or not.
I don't think he did. I don't think he did. But he was a genius, an absolute genius. Yeah. And that's the story of the East Tennessee backyard mechanic who came close to turning the automotive world upside down. Another one of the stories of Appalachia. Thanks for watching. Be sure to go down below, click that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up if you like the video, and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Till next we meet, y'all take care. So long, everybody.
So long.